All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Getting a little echo, so I do apologize. I'm just going to mute you, Ken. Okay, I think that's better. All right, so good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Katie Earle, and I'm the coordinator of the University Express program, and I work for the Erie County Department of Senior Services. And we're joined here virtually today with Ken Kaminsky, and we're so excited for his presentation on the history of Buffalo roadways. Before we jump into that, we do have some new folks here this morning, so I'll go through my usual housekeeping. Hope you're not sick of me yet for my regulars. But as you just heard me say, we are recording this session, and I will try to post it on our website in the near future if all goes as planned. And you've noticed by now that you've joined muted and without a video of yourself showing. It's not because you've done anything wrong. That's just the settings of our program, so no worries there. And you also might think you're the only person here in attendance with Ken and I today, but as you've heard me say, there are other people in here. It's just that we're in an anonymous participation mode, so only Ken and I are able to see the complete list of everybody who's here. So no worries there either. We will be communicating with you, as you just heard, using the Q&A panel. So throughout Ken's presentation, if you have any questions or comments, type those in right away, and we'll try to get to those as they come in. And if we happen to miss something, we'll get to it at the end. So how do you access that if you're new? If you joined from a laptop or computer, chances are that Q&A panel popped up on the right-hand side of your screen. You may just have to click that little arrow to expand it. You'll see the text box. You can send that in right to Ken or myself, and we'll handle that. If you're not seeing that on the right-hand side of your screen, if you look to the lower right-hand side of your WebEx window, you might see a box with a question mark and Q&A. You can click on that. Or if you're on a smartphone or a tablet, you can poke or touch your screen. That will bring up your control panel. You'll see a button with 3 dots. Click on that, and then you'll hit Q&A, and you should be good to go. So we hope you participate with us. We hope you have some fun here today. So I want to thank the sponsors of our program, which is my Department of Senior Services, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, Excelsior Orthopedics, and Wegmans, because they help make this happen. And as always, we at Senior Services are here if you need help with programs, services, or benefits, anything at all. Please do not hesitate to call us. We're at 858-8526, and I will introduce Ken to you. Ken is a licensed professional engineer and a graduate of the University of Buffalo in civil engineering with over 30 years experience in roadway and bridge design with the New York State Department of Transportation. Most recently, Ken was the project manager for the reconstruction of the village of Hamburg, which included 4 new roundabouts in the village of East Aurora, where its existing traffic circle was converted into a modern roundabout. Other notable projects Ken has been involved with include the reconstruction of the infamous Delaware Avenue S-curve, the Tift Street Bridge replacement, and the Village of Orchard Park rehabilitation. Other responsibilities include managing consultant engineers, reviewing designs performed by other agencies, and providing expert court testimony in defense of New York State. Ken, thank you for being here. I will mute you and turn it over. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. As Katie mentioned, this is the history of Buffalo roadways. I'm going to concentrate on, of course, the area right around this area. Can you see this arrow, Katie?
Yeah.
See the arrow? Okay, thank you. Of course, the city of Buffalo down here. Route 384 is Delaware Avenue, piercing right through the northern part of Buffalo. The Scajaquada Expressway is in this area, and the Kensington Expressway. So I'm going to be concentrating the presentation around this area, this part of Buffalo, and how it evolved in the history of Buffalo roadways. This is basically a close-up view of the Delaware Avenue S-curves, Forest Lawn Cemetery on the right, Delaware Park Lake in this area, which is called Hoyt Lake, and Delaware Park per se is up in this area where the golf course is. So that's a general overview of what we'll be looking at today. A brief outline of the presentation. I'll get into a little bit of road history, how roads were built, the type of roads and the type of materials that were used going back in time. A little bit about Buffalo history and some of the important players in Buffalo history and Buffalo road history, which I think Joseph Ellicott and Frederick Law Olmsted are the 2 important players in this presentation and in their development of Buffalo road history and Buffalo itself. The infamous Delaware Avenue S-curves, why are they S in shape? Why are they called that way? It wasn't always that way. And how the Scajaquada Expressway evolved with the Kensington Expressway. And then any questions, as Katie mentioned, just pop them up on the Q&A, and I'll try to resolve the questions during the presentation or takes them at the end, but I'd like to address them as the presentation goes along. A little bit about road history, going back in time. The history of road transport started with the development of tracks by humans and their beasts of burden. People were nomadic, moving over large expanses of land in search of food or a safer environment. The first improved trails would have been to cross a river or mountain pass. With the invention of the wheel, there became a need for better roads. So in urban areas, to be worthwhile, it was worthwhile to build stone paved streets. And in fact, the first paved street appeared around 4000 BC in the areas of Middle East and around the England area. Now, the Roman Empire, they were noted for large structures and large types of buildings. They seem to be the head of the curve in any type of construction, and road building was no different. They realized there was a need to travel quickly from one area to another, but the roads that existed were often muddy, which greatly delayed the movement of large masses of troops. So to solve this problem, the Romans built great roads, and they basically used road beds of crushed stone as an underlayer to ensure that it was kept dry, so the water would flow out from the underlayer instead of becoming mud. So the Romans had this great idea, but of course the engineers came along and they muddied the whole system up, and we get to a pothole type of system that we have today. So what did we do wrong? What happened? Next stage, person by the name of John Metcalfe. He was designated as possibly the first professional builder to emerge from this area. He constructed about 180 miles of turnpike roads, mainly in the north of England. In 1765, Parliament passed an act authorizing the creation of turnpike trusts to build new toll-funded roads in the area. That's probably where the Thruway Authority got the idea for charging tolls for the roads. He believed a good road should have good foundations, be well drained, and have a smooth convex surface to allow rainwater to drain quickly into a ditch side. He understood the importance of good drainage, knowing it was rain that caused the most problems. Moving ahead in time, the next era of road construction brings the name of John Macadam. Maybe some of you in the road business have heard the term macadam pavement. Well, John Macadam was a Scottish engineer. He developed an inexpensive paving process using a mixture of stone and soil around 1823. He discovered that massive foundations of rock were unnecessary and asserted that native soils alone could support road and traffic upon it, as long as it was covered by a road crust that would protect the soil underneath from water and wear. His premise was based on the concept that the lower level was restricted to around 3-inch sized stones, while the upper layer about 3/4 of an inch. Now, the story goes that the supervisor would check the size of these stones. It is said that the workman would size the stone himself by seeing if the stone would fit into his mouth. Now, that's true or not, but nevertheless, it's something that, of course, could never happen today. Now, macadam roads were adequate for use by horses and carriages and coaches, but they were very dusty and subject to erosion and heavy rain. So a method to seal the surface was developed in the late 1800s by a person by the name of John Henry Castle. He developed a method to spread tar on the subgrade, placing a typical macadam layer and finally sealing the macadam with a mixture of tar and sand. So this is more of the term macadam pavement, which was the predecessor to a hot mix asphalt pavement that we use today. In addition, a method of using spill tar on the roadway to keep the dust down and to create a smooth surface was patented in 1901 by British engineer Edgar Hooley. Thus the term tarmac, which is a term used in the airport reference as far as airport runways and airport surfaces, tarmac. Moving ahead, the good roads movement occurred in the United States in the early 1900s, late 1800s. it created a method whereby governments would own and operate road systems and collect taxes to build and maintain such roadways. This, of course, came at a time when the automobile was coming into use as a method of transportation. It was at this time that the current asphalt roadway became popular, whereby asphalt or bitumen was used as a form of glue or binder mixed with previous methods of construction. As the road history increased, asphalt was also supplemented by roads built of concrete and also roads built of bricks. You probably have seen evidence of brick roadways in various parts of the city of Buffalo and in other cities and towns. It's very common to see that layer of bricks exposed. But through the years, roadway engineers and construction methods actually build upon layers rather than nowadays we totally reconstruct the pavement, or essentially we dig everything up and replace it with modern subbase and modern pavement. But years ago, they just kind of built up layers from brick, maybe to concrete, and then to asphalt. There was also an era where planks were used. Wooden planks were used in certain areas around mid-1800s. In fact, the best method that we have here was Broadway. Broadway in the city of Buffalo and out to Batavia was built as a plank road, a layer of wooden planks. In fact, when we did reconstruct Broadway, we did find evidence of the wood planks in the underlayer system of Broadway through the area of Cheektowaga and Sloan out in that stretch. I put the name of L. Frank Baum. You probably remember him. He was the author of the famous Wizard of Oz story and the Wizard of Oz books. He was actually born in Chittenango, New York, which is just outside of Syracuse. A few years ago, I was talking to a colleague of mine in that area, and he mentioned that years before he was involved in a roadway reconstruction through Chittenango, New York, where they actually reconstructed the road, removed all the old pavement and surfaces, and lo and behold, what did they find amongst those lower layers of pavements? Was a layer of yellow bricks, which was common in that time frame, and thus the correlation to the Wizard of Oz.
Hey, Ken?
Yeah.
We have a question and comment that came through.
Okay.
So the comment is, wow, it is crazy how the newer roads are so much worse than the old roads after all these advancements.
I want to say it's job security, but you know, the traffic loads are heavier. Road salt has an impact on that. And just the sheer volume of traffic. Truck traffic is really very detrimental to the road surface. So yeah, things have changed in time and things have changed in construction.
Okay, thank you. And then the follow-up question is it just that modern roads are less well thought out, or are cities just unwilling to spend money necessary to emulate the roads that lasted for millennials?
I think it's what I mentioned previously is I think it's the amount of traffic, the volume of traffic, and the weight of the traffic loads that are put upon the surfaces, especially bridges. As far as the materials are concerned, testing and much research has been done in different materials. The most economical form of construction is asphalt pavement and concrete. It's almost less expensive to use that material and replace it every 7-10 years as far as repaving the surface, putting another layer. So maintenance is very critical to extend the life cycle of the pavement. So even though something isn't totally reconstructed, just milling the surface and repaving and maintaining the surface is very economical over the lifetime of the structure.
Okay, thank you, Ken. That's all I have for now.
Hey, this is just a close-up of the other area that I explained before as far as the Delaware Avenue and the S curves. You can see Delaware Avenue actually started out from the city of Buffalo, and it actually was a straight line shot years ago, and I'll get into that a little bit later. There's a close-up of that same area. Okay, so going back at the end of the Revolutionary War, Western New York was covered with dense forests and Indian villages. And in 1797, a person by the name of Robert Morris, he was a Philadelphia banker who had helped finance the Revolutionary War and recognized the value of land in Western New York. They purchased the entire area west of the Genesee River from Lake Ontario to the Pennsylvania border. This transaction took place at Geneseo and was called the Treaty of Big Tree, since the Big Tree Reservation was at the site, and Big Tree was the Indian chief's name at the time. This land purchased by Robert Morris was purchased by a group of wealthy Dutch merchants and financiers from Holland and called the Holland Land Company, back over here. Wilhelm Willink was a major person or major employee of the Holland Land Company, and he was the head person that really financed and helped coordinate the purchase of land with the Holland Land Company. In fact, if you look at some of your property deeds on your home, that title would most likely be traced back to Wilhelm Willink and the Holland Land Company. One positive effect of that is we are fortunate in Western New York to have a clear property title on our deeds traced back to that time. So when we do transact a house or transact property, we generally have a clear knowledge of title and a clear knowledge of any problems or any easements or any intricacies in the deeds that may be a problem in sale of transactions. So we can thank the Holland Land Company and Wilhelm Willink for that clear vision of title in properties from the Holland Land Company time to today. Now, Joseph Ellicott, he became a large player in all this. Joseph's brother Andrew was the Survey General of the United States, and Joseph Ellicott joined his brother Andrew and his other brother Benjamin to create a surveying company, which was developed and hired to survey all the lands of the Holland Land Company. The idea was to survey the land, to subdivide the land, and eventually to sell the land because they wanted to make money. There was no use of just owning the property. They needed to subdivide it and move ahead and create some type of profit with it. So prior to its management by Ellicott, the area had developed very little, but he had foreseen the potential of New Amsterdam, which he liked to call it. The inhabitants preferred the name Buffalo Creek. So before coming to Buffalo, Ellicott needed satisfactory living quarters to be built. So he sold 150 acres to a person by the name of Asa Ransom with the stipulation that he would build an inn for travelers, which he subsequently did at the foot of the East Hill, which is now Clarence Hollow, and which currently exists. Now, Joseph Ellicott moved his office there in 1801. And then shortly in 1802, he moved his office to Batavia, where he established the main company of Western New York, and the building of which still stands today. Now, Ellicott was advised by the Holland Land Company to proceed with selling off tracts of land in their purchase rather than laying out New Amsterdam. But Ellicott shortly realized that we have to develop, transportation is important. We have to develop some type of transportation, some type of road system throughout this area. So he realized that the future of Western New York was in Buffalo, not in Batavia. So he decided to establish a road system that he felt would spur economic development, which had currently not met expectations. He liked the concept of running avenues at acute angles like spokes radiating from a hub, an idea first implemented by the Ellicott brothers at the federal capitol in Washington, D.C. So when the time came to lay out Buffalo streets, Ellicott used the same system spreading from a hub that is Niagara Square today. This is an old map of the Holland Land Company purchase. The Genesee River is over here. So basically, and everything west of the Genesee River, all the counties of Western New York were part of the Holland Land Company purchase. Here's a picture of Joseph Ellicott at the time. kind of a burly, husky type of guy, good for good as a surveyor. And here's some of the just a little brief information about surveyors and the equipment that they use. These are called surveyors' chains. Now, one chain from about here to here, the length of one chain is 7.92 inches. Now, why would it be 7.92 inches? Well, 100 of these chains would equal 66 feet. Now, in road reconstruction and road terminology, 66 feet is equivalent to 4 rods, it's called. You may have heard the expression, this is a 4-rod road, this is a 2-rod road, this is a 3-rod road. Well, if 4 rods were 66 feet, and it was 100 chains, 2 rods, half of that, would be 33 feet or 50 chains, and so forth. 1 rod, 2 rods, 3 rods, which was the basic type of measurements that surveyors used back then, and we still do today. We still use a rod designation for roadway width. But that was the standard width of roadway back then, 2 rods or 4 rods. And I think if you travel through Alden, Lancaster area, you'll come across 2-rod road and 3-rod road. So this is a designation of where that came from. Steel tape. This is some of the measuring tools that were used in his era. Of course, a compass, needed a compass to find out where north was, where was magnetic north, and many of the surveys and property lines were established off of true north and magnetic north. Of course, a protractor and a type of ink pens and other types of measuring devices. And of course, the use of geometry and trigonometry was very important to surveyors back then in calculating property boundaries and road boundaries and turning angles and such and trying to get the proper and precise measurements. This is one of the first maps of what was called the village of New Amsterdam at the time. You can see the center part of the spoke of the wheel, so to speak, was right around this area, which is where Niagara Square is today. Here's a little bit better one a year later, labeled the Buffalo Village, 1805. Here you can see some of the street names were given many type of Dutch influences or Native American and Indian names. Some of the names still exist today, many of them don't still exist. But again, Ellicott's design was a centralized area of Niagara Square in this area, and the streets just radiated out like a spoke of a wheel. Delaware Avenue, which is Delaware Street at the time, kind of went vertically, almost due north from the center of the spoke. Here's that same area today. Downtown Buffalo is here, and Delaware Avenue, which is Route 384, spreading north, and the other streets, Sycamore, Buffalo, William, Clinton, all extending out radiating from the hub, which was Niagara Square. Here's a close-up of Niagara Square, Buffalo City Hall, pretty much as it exists today. Any more questions there, Katie?
Yeah, we have a question about road construction. So
okay.
This person says, several years ago in Chicago, I saw a street being worked on and the base was wood. Pieces were approximately 4 by 4 by 12 and placed on end. It looked like a giant checkerboard. Was this common?
Yes, it was common back, as I mentioned, the plank road era. It was in areas that did have an abundance of trees or forests that they used planks. Canada used it quite often, but planks and woods were used back then at a certain era when they did not have any other materials. Maybe the macadam pavement wasn't available, concrete wasn't available, or bricks weren't available at the time. So people tried to use the best material at the time and what was the most economical method.
Okay, thank you. Then we have a comment, great maps.
Okay, thanks. Okay, moving ahead in time, December 30th, 1813, I think a day that will live in Buffalo history. On December 10th of that same year, General George McClure, who was the commander of American forces in the Niagara area, senselessly burned the Canadian town of Newark, which was now Niagara on the Lake. Then he retreated from the west side of the river The settlers on the American side protested this burning of a defenseless town, an act of cruelty, but feared retaliation. But sure enough, the British forces, augmented by Native Americans, crossed the river and surprised Fort Niagara and proceeded to destroy Lewiston. 2 days later, they continued marching up the river, destroying the villages of Manchester, which is now Niagara Falls, stopping at Tonawanda Creek, where the bridges were destroyed by retreating American forces. So the villages of Black Rock and Buffalo were still on edge, but they were saved for now. They garnered militia forces from Genesee and Chautauqua counties, which came in to defend Buffalo, and confidence returned. However, this quickly dissipated when on December 30th, it was realized they were no match for the British and Indian forces that quickly took and burned the villages of Black Rock and then Buffalo. Panic-stricken, most residents fled the village, and all that was left were a few resistors, which were eventually killed or taken prisoner, all due to the senseless act of General George McClure. So Buffalo had to rebuild, and Joseph Ellicott was a big part of that rebuilding. He was a major player by this time. He contributed personal funds as well as many company funds, and he served on a commission with the state legislature, which was created to help war victims. This is also a reason you will not find any building in Buffalo with a cornerstone prior to 1813. Everything was destroyed and rebuilt around that time. Another achievement of Joseph Ellicott to Buffalo transportation was his realization as early as 1808 that other modes of transportation were needed to spur development of Buffalo. He urged the creation of an all-water route from Albany to Buffalo, always keeping in mind what benefited the company. He became knowledgeable about alternate route courses and served as canal consultant for the state legislature. To contribute to the cause, he persuaded the company to deed the state approximately 100,000 acres of its land in the southern part of the purchase, where Allegheny State Park is located. Once construction of the waterway had begun, his role in extending the canal west of the Genesee was historic, because when the canal reached Rochester, strong efforts were made by influential forces to stop westward continuous. It was Joseph Ellicott, probably more so than any other single person, who used his formidable political power developed through the years to push the canal from Rochester to Buffalo. So the canal was completed in 1824, which opened the floodgates of immigration westward, boosting Buffalo's population and commerce. It was called the handsomest spot of the purchase, and you know the rest of the story. That spurred economic development and spurred the future of Buffalo to be a very prosperous city from that point forward. And here's a newer map of Buffalo around 1849. Again, more streets were added. The city started to develop. You can still see the radial design of the spokes of the wheel emanating from Niagara Square. So Buffalo was kind of coming into its own at this point, becoming more prosperous and more populated.
Ken, we have a question about Mr. Ellicott.
Yep.
Were there any examples of similarly impressive canals that inspired Mr. Ellicott, or was he just a visionary?
I'm not really sure about that, if there were other examples. I want to say he was a visionary, as he was even prior, as far as surveying the lands and purchasing the lands and creating a road system. So I think he was more of a visionary. I don't know of any evidence of previous canals that he was involved in.
Okay, thank you.
And moving ahead, the next important individual, a person by the name of Frederick Law Olmsted. He lived from 1822 to 1903. I'm sure you're all familiar with him. He was an American landscape architect, journalist, a social critic, and public administrator. He is popularly considered the father of American landscape architecture, And he, along with his partner, are famous for designing many well-known urban parks, including Central Park in New York, Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, and Elm Park in Worcester, Massachusetts. So around 1860, Buffalo, which was a major U.S. city, commissioned Olmsted and his firm to design a park system. Delaware Avenue, which was known as Delaware Street in the 1880s, which was one of the radial avenues emanating from Niagara Square, delineated by Ellicott. So this kind of a crude map, but this is what was Delaware Street going through what became Delaware Park. This is Scajaquada Creek. Forest Lawn Cemetery was built to this side, but Delaware Street was basically a pretty straight thoroughfare at that time. So by the mid-1800s, the city of Buffalo's urban cemeteries and churchyards were nearing capacity, and the need was recognized for a new municipal cemetery. So in 1849, 80 acres on the northeast side of Scajaquada Creek, right about here, between Delaware Street and Main Street, were purchased by Charles E. Clark, who founded Forest Lawn Cemetery in 1850. His layout included winding roadways passing between knolls overlooking Scajaquada Creek. The location of the cemetery was at the outskirts of the city, with only farmland beyond. So this 1855 map depicts that, again, the straight alignment of Delaware and the area of Forest Lawn Cemetery. So what Olmsted did, he developed a series of parks and park systems, basically composed of 3 parks. Delaware Park, up here, the lower right was Humboldt Park, which was now called Martin Luther King Park. And down here, Front Park, which is now LaSalle Park. Now these are all connected by tree-lined boulevards or parkways. The most famous was Humboldt Parkway. Maybe some of you remember. I remember even as a little boy, some of the tree-lined parkway that really existed from Delaware Park to Humboldt Parkway, and also the additional connection of Lincoln Parkway, Chapin Boulevard, and progressing down Richmond to what was Front Park. So there was a kind of a triumvirate type of connection that Olmsted created in this area. Now, Olmsted wrote to the Buffalo Parks Commission. The site was selected as, on a whole, the best that could be found for the purpose exclusivity had in view. This was to provide recreation for the people of the city through enjoyment of simple, rural, park-like scenery. The ground was laid out upon a plan that made everything subordinate to that purpose. So Olmsted designed this park for the people in the city of Buffalo, for a place to come and relax, take it easy. Even with Forest Lawn Cemetery, even though most of the people there, of course, were very quiet, but people would come. It was designed for people to come and visit to that area and enjoy the serenity and enjoying the peacefulness of Forest Lawn Cemetery. And Olmsted just piggybacked on that idea, created the Delaware Park system. Here's another close-up. Again, Delaware Avenue was more of a curvilinear plan. Initially, Delaware Street came through here. So Olmsted made a quick right turn down to the southern end and really meandered a nice curvilinear design plan through this area and created a large lake in this area with several bays pointed out. Again, as a place for peacefulness and serenity. Look on the other side. Again, here's Delaware Avenue now. Forest Lawn Cemetery had its own system of walkways and travelways. And Delaware Park to the north had a system of park roadways, of bridle paths, which terminated along Agassiz Place, and proceeded down Humboldt Parkway to Humboldt Park along this section, which was a tree-lined boulevard. So again, I mentioned that I think I have it here. Here it is. Also, this is a view of Gate Circle today, one of the key elements of Olmsted's design. But I mentioned the park system was created for peacefulness, for serenity, for quietness. But lo and behold, what came along around 1880, a new mode of transportation, a new mode of high-speed transportation that really put a wrench into Olmsted's design. He wanted this, again, area for slow movements and for peacefulness. So I usually ask the question, what do you think this new mode of transportation is? People will think the automobile, but prior to that, it was the bicycle. Bicyclists came into Olmsted's area, and it was almost a travesty that these high-speed vehicles are traveling through this peaceful park and destroying the serenity. So there was a lot of controversy when it came to the bicycle era to force itself upon this quiet parkway. Some other photos along this stretch, along Lincoln Parkway. You see, as I mentioned, the bridle paths were very popular. And the horseless carriage was starting to make its presence felt. This area was very wealthy, so many people did have the early version of automobiles in this area, in addition to horses. Humboldt Parkway around 1890 wasn't quite paved yet, but you can see the evidence of the boulevard and the tree-lined boulevard. 1915 Humboldt Parkway was paved by this time, and a tree-lined boulevard, tree-lined median was taken hold. Of course, Delaware Avenue today. Any other questions? Comment?
Yep, we have one. What was the Belt Line? A railroad?
The Belt Line? I'm not sure what that is, or the Belt Line, by the question. I don't know if I referred to that previously, or maybe we can clarify there.
Yeah, it was a couple minutes ago back when we were talking about the old maps from downtown. So we can see if there's a clarifying question.
Okay.
If there is, I'll let you know.
Okay. So here's a view of Delaware Avenue today, and going back, Olmsted's design at this intersection of Forest Avenue took a sharp right turn and proceeded up this way, crossed Scajaquada Creek, and proceeded along this curvilinear motion. Now, how did we get to this point today? We actually doubled the roadway. We flattened this curve through this section. So how did we get from Olmsted's design to this, which is the alignment today? So what happened, the Works Projects Administration around 1935, which was a Depression-era agency to create jobs and to spur economic development, they reconstructed Delaware Avenue on essentially the same alignment, with the exception of the southerly right angle down here, replaced with a gradual curve, giving the S-curve designation. Also of importance was the twinning, or the doubling, of the original alignment to produce two separate boulevards, one for northbound and one for southbound traffic. There were two bridges built over Scajaquada Creek up in this area, adjacent to Forest Lawn Cemetery, and another to pass Delaware Park over Delaware Avenue, which is way up over here. I'll have some pictures of those shortly. But you can see this area, and this area was originally part of Olmsted's lake. So this area was now filled in back in the 30s, and this area filled in also. So the size of this lake was dramatically reduced with the construction of the second half of the S-curve through this area. Here's a ground level of Delaware Avenue today. Looking north, Forest Lawn Cemetery on the right. Here are some older photographs. The old road on the right, which was the northbound side. The southbound side was the new road, which was constructed here. These were the stone arch bridges which still exist today, this carries Scajaquada Expressway over Delaware Avenue. But this bridge was meant to carry Delaware Park roadway. This is the date of this photo is 1936. So of course the Scajaquada Expressway did not exist yet, but Delaware Park did was separated from Delaware Avenue, and these bridges were used to carry the Park roadway over Delaware Avenue. Here's an upper level view. This is the northern end. This is where Nottingham Terrace is today. We're looking south. This would be the new side, the new half of the boulevard, and the old alignment was back over here. The two stone arch bridges are here. This is where the alignment of the Scajaquada Expressway travels today. And some of the finished pavements in that area. Another aerial view. This was Agaz's Circle or Agaz's Place, which was delineated at some of the other maps. This is looking down what was Humboldt Parkway, looking down towards the Science Museum and what is now Martin Luther King Park. You can see the construction of the underpass under Main Street. The tree line boulevard was removed in preparation for the construction of the Scajaquada Expressway. Now, getting into the Scajaquada Expressway, post-World War II brought an increase in the use of the automobile, and of course, traffic engineers determined there a need for a high-speed roadway to connect the east and west side of Buffalo. The route of the Scajaquada Expressway followed the path of the former Park Drive through Delaware Park along the north side of the Park Lane and Forest Lawn Cemetery. The 1930 stone bridge was adapted to carry this expressway with an interchange constructed at Delaware Avenue and which filled in many portions of Delaware Lake. Again, an aerial view. This is Agaz's Circle. This was the Park roadway before the Scajaquada Expressway was built. These were the stone arch bridges, which I showed previously, which traveled over Delaware Avenue. And here you can see the old portion of Delaware Park Lake. It was much larger. The two areas to the north and this corner was still water, whereas today this has been filled in. This is a close-up view of what was Agaz's Circle. Again, an aerial view of the stone arch bridges with Delaware Avenue going underneath. Again, this is still a park roadway. Some of the baseball diamond that still exists today now is a soccer field in this area, but this was basically just a park roadway through Delaware Park. Here's some of the construction photos. Constructing, this is Humboldt Parkway under Main Street, removing that median, creating stone retaining walls and constructing new bridges at this location. Showing a close-up, a lot of form work, a lot of false work needed. If you went to construction years ago, a lot of workers in the area. I see there's really no, today you'd have requirements of people wearing hard hats and orange vests. You don't see any of that today, but a lot of this work was done with manual labor, more so than having modern construction equipment that we have today. So there's a lot of lack of technology back then, a lot of manual labor needed to build a massive structure like this. Here's the Scajaquada Expressway today, looking down Humboldt Parkway. Here's the old vestiges of Agaz's Circle and the Scajaquada Expressway through here. One little story I can relate, my father-in-law, who was in the Korean War, he went to Korea in the 50s, and they lived out in this area. And before he went to war, this was all open parkway. When he came back, this expressway was built, so he couldn't recognize it. He used to walk from his home into a park, and then now it's separated by a high-speed expressway. So it was a drastic change for him when he came back from Korea. Again, a before and after photograph. Another aerial view of what's left of the exit circle today, with the Scajaquada Expressway going through. Any other questions coming down?
We had some clarification. So the Beltline was on top of one of the maps, and then we have a person who said Beltline Railroad circled the city so it could go to all businesses, places, and factories. Still there today. I took a bus tour years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you know, the speed on the Scajaquada Expressway was lowered to 30 miles per hour. There was a tragic accident a few years ago. How that is progressing, I'm not really sure about any history of accidents. There's a lot of controversy about that situation, but I'll leave that up to you as far as whether it's appropriate or not. But you know the situation now as far as the speed limit and what has happened today with the Scajaquada. So I'm moving ahead regarding the Kensington Expressway. The Kensington Expressway, which is called Route 33, is an approximate 9-mile control access express route between the Buffalo Central Business District and the airport. The downtown terminus connects to the Niagara section of the thruway via the Elm Oak corridor. The Kensington Expressway was first proposed in a 1953 report prepared for the then New York State Department of Public Works, coming right on the heels of the commencing of the construction of the Scajaquada Expressway. As the city has grown and automobile usage increased, the system of city streets has become congested to a point where relief must be provided. As per the 1953 report, the construction of such an expressway permits the rapid movement of traffic between downtown and the airport, and to which their economic well-being is intimately related. For instance, traffic in local areas can reach either downtown, industrial sections, or other areas quickly over the expressway. Similarly, areas which presently suffer from critical traffic congestion obtain a further increase in values because of the withdrawal of traffic from the existing city streets. The overall result was to be a stimulus to new development and rejuvenating of depressed sections. Whether that happened or not, I guess it's up to you to decide. The estimated cost was $45 million, but it came at a price of losing 639 residential buildings and residential displacements and 71 buildings. So it was a big type of project that took many buildings and displaced neighborhoods and displaced a large amount of people. So there was a price to pay socially for building the expressway. You can see partial completion of this expressway. You can see remnants of Humboldt Parkway and the tree-lined boulevard here. This section wasn't quite complete. So we had an expressway leading into a parkway, so there was much congestion at this point as far as traffic was concerned. This is building of the lower level of the Kensington Expressway, the forms for the retaining wall in this area, and much of the construction taking place on the roadway itself. Here's that same area that was that's built today. Here's an aerial view of how the construction pretty much split through neighborhoods. This is looking east towards the airport. Harlem Road is over here, Ellicott Road. So the alignment of the expressway was a major impact to many of these streets that were split from the expressway, and neighborhoods and buildings and homes that were that needed to be demolished because of the expressway. Again, looking towards downtown, this was the depressed area, the lower section of the expressway, looking towards downtown Buffalo. I threw this slide in here to complicate things a little bit, but something called the National Environmental Policy Act around 1970. The acronym is NEPA, and the State Environmental Quality Review Act. These two laws came into play on the heels of major construction projects like the Scajaquada Expressway, the Kensington Expressway, really to protect the environment and to protect many issues such as social issues, economic, environmental issues, which would make it almost impossible to build an expressway like the Kensington or Scajaquada today because of these environmental laws and regulations which came into play, which were not part of the earlier construction projects. This makes projects safer, more environmentally friendly, more friendly to the public nowadays. We need to have public involvement. We need to have the public more aware of major projects that's going on. One of the reasons it takes much longer to build any type of construction project, whether it's a roadway or a building, and it's a good thing because we need to vet many of these issues, vet many of these environmental topics before we can go forward and build something. Some people may think it's some type of an obstructionist policy. Many projects kind of get hung up. You know, the Peace Bridge was talked about for years, and that's kind of got hung up and slowed down. So we need to take a closer look at things, take a closer look at the environment, and the NEPA Act of 1970 was really all began. It came on the heels of Earth Day and many of the environmental issues to be put into the public's awareness, so that when public funds are being used, we need to be sensitive to all these topics so that pretty much all these things are taken into consideration. So that's pretty much all I have. Any other questions coming in, Katie?
Yes, we do. So we've got a cool, thank you for the Beltline explanation. We have a comment, lower the speed limit to 10 miles per hour for the Scajaquada, less chance for accidents. We have, is there still talk about covering the Kensington Expressway in the Humble area?
Good question. That's this area, covering the Kensington, which would involve essentially building a structure from here to here and keeping traffic covered. Their studies are still ongoing. It's still in a study phase. It's a very early stage. Of course, it'd be a very expensive project to do. In this age, there's much competition with funds to do other types of projects, but it's still on the drawing board. It's still being looked at this point, but it's pretty far down in priorities as far as projects are concerned at this point.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Next, is there discussion of having CSX paint the truss at the Kensington 198 split?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Then we have a comment. Thank you for your time. Great presentation. We have a question. How do speed limits get set in general?
Good question. Speed limit is set with an idea of what is the driver comfortable, what are drivers comfortable with in traveling a particular roadway. Let's use this photo as an example. If you were traveling here, the lanes are fairly wide. There's really no traffic signals. There's no intersection. So you feel comfortable traveling here 55 or 60. Of course, the speed limit set is 55. So traffic engineers, when roads are initially designed, there's criteria and standards for the various type of roadways is what the driver will feel comfortable traveling. So the speed limit is set accordingly to that. There's controversy by putting up a sign, for instance, with the Scajaquada Expressway. I can get to that back here. This expressway was originally 50 miles per hour. and now we put a sign that says 30 miles per hour. Now, does traffic feel comfortable traveling at 30 miles an hour? With this type of roadway, again, the lanes here aren't as wide as on the Kensington, but the lanes are wider, and the type of design is you feel more, you could travel a higher speed than, let's say, a local street where you have trees and curbs and sidewalks. So a lot of it depends on the geometry of the road, the physicality of the roadway, what's around, and what does the driver feel comfortable driving on the roadway. If you're on a local street, you don't feel comfortable driving 50 miles an hour, but you do feel comfortable on an expressway just because of the design. Now, putting up a sign and lowering a speed limit, somebody mentioned making this 10 miles an hour. Well, will traffic feel comfortable driving at 10 miles an hour, or they feel comfortable driving at 50 miles an hour? Putting a sign with the lower speed might be more detrimental, because some traffic will feel like I feel I can travel faster, other traffic will travel slower. So you have that differential of what the driver would feel like traveling versus what the sign says, which could be more detriment to the safety of individuals, because you have some people going slower, some people going faster. I know it's a question of enforcement, but enforcement can't be 24/7. So the speed limit, again, should be a function of the roadway, the design of the roadway, the curvature of the roadway. We have a new term nowadays called traffic calming. We want to try to calm traffic by changing the geometry of the roadway, making traffic be forced to slow down so they feel comfortable at a lower speed. And a roundabout, which is one of my other presentations, putting a roundabout at an intersection actually forces traffic to slow down rather than having a traffic signal there, or rather than having a police officer there. It's a physical element that's introduced into the roadway, which forces traffic and forces vehicles to slow down, rather than depending on enforcement 100%. So I know that's a long answer, but that speed limit is factored into the design of the roadway. It starts in the beginning of the roadway when the roadway is first designed, and just putting up a sign and lowering the speed limit may not always be the correct thing to do.
That's really interesting, Ken. Thank you for sharing that. Next I'm seeing is, what is the status of branches of the subway system? Does anyone know?
I don't know. I don't know. Can't hear you. Yeah.
I was muted. Thank you. The next thing is, the Delaware exit from the 198 is always a bottleneck. Are there plans to change this?
The Delaware Avenue, so I can get to that. I don't have it in this photo, but there are plans. Again, on the drawing board, there was a plan to downgrade the Scajaquada Expressway and create more of a grade level intersection at Delaware Avenue. At the moment, those plans are on hold, like most of the things. So there was something on the books to do that, but again, that's put off to the side for a while.
Okay, thank you. Next question, do you have any knowledge of the progress on removing the Skyway?
No, I don't.
Thank you, Ken. Person, I think, responded back to the subway system. It says extension to UB are under study. And we have a roundabout question, Ken. The roundabout on Grand Island is very small and dangerous. Can you go out to look at it?
Well, I have. I guess I would ask the question of what's dangerous. I know I've traveled that several times. Again, I don't know what the accident history is. That's what we would have to look at first. How has that progressed as far as safety? I always say with the roundabout, you may have a situation where there are many almost accidents. People say, I was almost in an accident. I was almost hit by a car. A car almost ran into me. Well, almost doesn't equate to an actual accident. So we want almost accidents. We don't want actual accidents taking place. So I don't know of any particular problem. With that, I mean, you can write to the Department of Transportation in Buffalo. You're perfectly, you should do that. The office is at 100 Seneca Street, but you can look online, New York State DOT, and find the Buffalo office and write to the regional director at that location, and someone will take a look at it. Someone will answer your question, and if a study is needed, it will take place. But I encourage you to do that.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Next question, do you know how the name Agassiz came about?
No, I don't. Maybe somebody does.
If you do, put it in the Q&A. If not, that's all right. Well, I'm seeing a couple thank yous. I have thanks, Ken. Enjoyed your presentation. Thank you so much. Would love to learn about roundabouts. So maybe we do that in the spring if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Yep. And another, I'd love to hear your presentation on roundabouts. So I think that we should bring that back.
Okay.
All right. Well, Ken, thank you so much for taking your time this morning to share this information with us. And for everyone who's on, we appreciate you. And I will get this recording online when I'm able to.
Okay.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you again,
Thank
Ken.
you.
I'll talk with you later.
Bye-bye.